I am going to physical therapy and I'm getting acupuncture.
Say, sounds like you should be doing some yoga and some Pilates. That's what I need to do. I need to try to get my core.
Either that or drink lots of whiskey or something.
Ooh. Want me to try that with you? Maybe
Yeah.
my guy feel really.
Computer's being a little slow.
Oh, good, that gets me off the hook.
Did you hear we're gonna have visitors in here today watching your thing?
No?
Yeah, there's about 10 of them, I think.
High schoolers.
Yeah, from State
State
High.
high class.
Oh,
That Bill's
geez.
giving a tour to.
I'll try to.
They're a meteorology class.
It's a
so
meteorology.
It sounds like they know,
Oh,
at
good.
least they know a little
Good.
bit.
Which I was taking meteorology class in high school.
I know.
They knew the ITCZ, so I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of
Okay.
impressive
Yeah.
for high schoolers.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
I actually
And-
chose an impossible forecast, but it was the one I had to do.
Right.
What's new? Other than that, how's the dog?
Mac is wonderful. You know, Kathy's dad died in October. Did you know that? Yeah, 91.
Was it expected or had he been ill or was it?
He had been pretty frail. I mean, it was all of a sudden. I mean, we had him down for a picnic on a Saturday in early October, and he was dead the next Saturday. Congestive heart failure.
Was he in pain or was it fast?
It was fast. It was fast. But that doesn't make it any easier.
Oh, no, but I'm thinking from his.
There you go.
Yeah.
You guys
Oh,
need
yeah.
to.
Not just suffer at the end. Our mom is still alive.
Yeah, she's 91 as well.
It's wrong.
So I don't know.
She's got some good shape.
It's probably hashtag screen share.
It's about, you know, I went from fighting the infection
Actually, it was hashtag CWS.
in my face.
Oh,
okay.
Can you just go re-invite it?
Early spring, and the weather hasn't cooperated.
Well, no, the weather doesn't help anything.
Wait, isn't that, it was right there.
Up on the top. On the bar that's on the thing in the middle.
Is Kathy doing okay?
Yeah, she's doing
Top.
well. Oh, your kids.
Where is it?
The top.
How's Paul?
The thing in the middle there.
He's busy.
See where like it has the hang up button? The thing all the way to the left there.
Fire. Oh, another.
Add to people.
No, I
And
just.
then-
There we go.
Yeah.
She can't hear him. I big old head.
Oh wait, it's here. Never mind.
Oh, neat.
Four.
Oh, that's.
Now you just gotta like
that's
make
cute.
sure that, okay. Do you do it through like Pro or something?
Why is it not letting me?
Because the
There we go.
there you go. The computer's slow. That's all.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why we want to do it.
Okay, now you just share the screen.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Stevens.
Wow.
Wow, this-
Wow.
wow,
This. You don't.
Which screen?
Although.
That one. That one.
You're gonna have one less people.
Yeah.
I usually watch.
Let's see.
Oh, and when one day Amanda's not here to run this, I can't introduce her to Steve.
Right.
Who's Amanda?
She's in the office.
Right.
I know she's up there.
She did this morning. Oh, did she? She sent me her.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Got it.
And then, I'm just trying to Of course.
Yeah, I mean it does this every time.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was
I know, right? A minute.
You know.
Your name was only Eric one time.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That's very crazy.
It's a good thing. You need just use fire processor. That's the best. Okay. I pulled up the kids. Yeah, we don't normally wait. We have class till about 12:30, so I'm gonna do that. Yes, yeah. Yeah. Like 2 weeks of right. Yeah. So I felt bad. Really?
Yeah. So
Oh, good. Oh, I thought the first one.
I'm sure it's good for your eye. Oh. It'll. And now, and good try.
Yeah.
Now you NBC station, where they're news crews follow their. Yeah. What was the NBC station?
I don't know. Careful on Twitter.
Yeah, I didn't think that. I said with Friday. Yeah. Okay. We're just gonna wait for that. There's a group up on the roof. We'll wait for them to come down.
There was a song by the cook.
Oh, so you know that, the doctor.
No. There's a group of about 10 or 15 high school students who stayed high. We're just gonna wait for them to come back in and run up on the roof. They should be.
Is that Art? Hi, Art. Good, how are you? Long time no see. What's new, Art? Well, you look at the medium range. It doesn't.
it's better.
Should I go up and see if they're coming down?
You know, I called Bill.
Oh, great.
If they take longer than we wait, the less I have to talk.
No, it's not Will Pepper, I think it's just Bill Pepper.
Which is still back to Will.
God. I'm not sure. White knows how to reach him, but different test. He does, he used to never do that, and now,
Professor Young,
yeah, now.
how are you? Good, hanging in there.
We need a real meteorologist here.
Oh, a rusty meteorologist.
Plenty of room.
Your last.
There's plenty of room.
These are our meteorologists of the future.
Stay high.
Of the future. How you doing, Bill?
Feel free to come up front too. There's some chairs up here. And you can move those two if you want, or the other computer.
I'm like the pastor or the priest, and this is the front pew.
You can turn some of those chairs on.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming. Today we have Lee Grenci, who is a former lecturer in meteorology here at Grenci, and welcome to the group of students and teachers from Stay High. Hopefully you enjoy this. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. I have to admit, this morning when I got up to prepare this, it's been 3 years since I've prepared a formal forecast, so a little bit rusty. And I chose a very, actually it's the only game in town, the severe weather over the Midwest. And I'm calling it a big, messy playground of severe weather, and you'll soon understand what I mean by that. I just thought we'd just drop back and look at the arrival of El Nino just recently. I guess it's not a bona fide El Nino, depending on what rules you use, but the idea is that there's been a late March and early April a warming in the Eastern Pacific, and that has ramifications downstream where we live in the contiguous states. This is a pentad, sort of an average over 5 days of outgoing long-wave radiation. And if you look at the top graph right here, this bluish kind of stuff, that's relatively small outgoing infrared radiation suggested of high cloud tops associated with convection that blossoms over the warm waters of the Central Pacific. And in the anomalies down here in the on this second graph, you can see that the outgoing long-wave radiation is lower than normal. Well, what does that mean? Well, if there are thunderstorms in the Central Pacific, convection in the Central Pacific, then the outflow, the high-level outflow from those thunderstorms can help to maintain high-level winds across the Pacific. And indeed, if you look at the 200 millibars up there around 9-10 miles, 10 kilometers, excuse me, you can see a fairly swift flow associated with the subtropical jet stream going into the contiguous states. And the only reason I point that out is that over the course of the next couple of weeks, basically the first half of spring, you may hear people talk about split flow in the Pacific and a robust southern branch of the jet stream and things like that. And that has to do with in part with El Nino. And it turns out today's episode of severe weather in the Middle West is going to involve a couple of disturbances in two different branches of the jet stream. I got up early. I had to go to the doctor's, and so forgive me. This is the 06Z run of the NAM. I actually snuck a peek at the 12Z, and it's not too dissimilar. But this wave that came out of the Great Basin is moving up into the western Great Lakes is the same wave that brought rain and snow to California earlier in the week, a little bit too late. And you watch, there's another trough here in this branch of the jet stream, and it sort of tries to merge with this wave that's coming out of the Great Basin. Meteorologists call that phasing. This is not a clean phase. But the important thing to keep your eye on is this little pocket here, that little shortwave at 500 millibars sort of means business as it moves up into the Great Lakes region. This is the 6Z NAM run of mean sea level isobars, 850 isotherms, 850 millibar isotherms, and 3-hour precipitation. And at the beginning of the loop, I can't find my cursor here. That must be my eyesight. Let me let this roll through one more time. Sort of get cyclogenesis in the lee of the Rockies, southern Rockies, and then that low moves up into the Great Lakes. And remember, as I go through the briefing, the position of this low, I'll come back to this, that may be the scene of some intense thunderstorms later today and tonight. Again, this is from the 6-hour run. I just wanted to make a little mention of what's going to happen to us initially. There's this big cold front with this low pressure system that I was talking about, and the low moves up into Canada. All the dynamics, all the upper air support typically moves up with, moves up into Canada. Then you're going to have some low-level convergence along the cold front, and so the nasty business is going to move up here. There's going to be some action here, but in Pennsylvania, with the dynamics scooting away and the showers and thunderstorms sort of hogging up the moisture along the cold front farther south, I have a hard time seeing us getting what's the word I want to use? Slaughtered by severe storms. You'll note ahead of this low, this bulging red line here, those are 850 millibar isotherms. We get into the thickness ridge, so as this cold front approaches tomorrow and passes sometime tomorrow afternoon, we will briefly warm up. And there's the 36-hour. You can see the low and a lot of the precipitation going here and the main convection sort of hanging to the south. It's sort of a minimum across Pennsylvania. So all this low cloud stuff and cool weather associated with the upslope flow off the Atlantic is going to briefly give way to a teasing warm-up. There's the 12Z surface analysis. That low that formed in the lee of the Rockies now is moving up towards the western Great Lakes. There's the cold front, a dry line here hanging down in Texas, and a warm front stretching across the southern Great Lakes. So a big warm sector here. Now, I might point out, especially for the Penn State students, that the one thing I used to not like to hear students talk about when they were trying to give a reason for severe weather is the traditional clash of air masses, as if that severe weather only happened along a front. There will be severe weather out into the warm sector far away from the fronts. So the idea that when you hear people talking about the clashing of air masses being the reason for thunderstorms and severe thunderstorms, that's not probably the best way to explain it. Dr. Verlinde, how are you? Good. I'm fine. Just look at the surface. How's that show up? Pretty thin. The green contours with arrows are surface streamlines, and you can see the convergence around the surface low that I was talking about. The only reason I pointed this out is that early this morning back into Ohio and Indiana, upper 50s and low 60s, even in western Pennsylvania, closer to 50 and the mid 50s, but then back here in good old central Pennsylvania, where with the upslope flow off the Atlantic, we were sitting in the 30s and low 40s, with lots of clouds, of course. One of the first things, I got up at 5 o'clock, I left my dog out, and one of the first things I looked at was the radar, and what struck me about this radar is that what a mess. Just lots and lots of early convection, lots of clouds, lots of outflow boundaries, and a couple of mesoscale convective vortices that I'll talk about in a minute. Just a lot going on here, and I imagine if I were working at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, I probably would be sweating bullets today, because it's not a clear-cut forecast of where things are going to go. Another example of the mess, lots of clouds. This is the IR satellite. See this little swirly right here? That's the leftover circulation from a mesoscale convective system of thunderstorms that occurred overnight. And that's a little sort of low pressure system that's going to move east-northeast and further complicate it. The ability to pinpoint where severe showers and thunderstorms are going to form. This is actually a 3-hour loop of IR satellite images, and you can see one mesoscale convective vortex right here, sort of northeast Oklahoma, and watch, there's another one right in, see this little guy right there? Another mesoscale convective vortex. So you have all these clouds, all these early showers and thunderstorms. You have these boundaries that are propagating away from these showers and thunderstorms. Boundaries that are relatively small, but yet can serve as sites for initiation of thunderstorms later in the day and the evening. So it's a very complicated mess. To further complicate it, this is a 850 millibar. I actually used the 6-hour forecast from the 06 GFS run. Please forgive me. But it shows a well-defined low-level jet stream transporting lots of moisture, lots of low-level shear that will aid in any severe thunderstorms, producing gusty winds. Also, if there are discrete supercells, then they often look for low-level jets to enhance the possibility of tornado genesis. So, of course, I'm not going to say that the SPC agrees with me. I looked at SPC first. I looked at this this morning, and they do, in fact, have a big messy playground. Notice that they, since I retired, they've changed their labels on the probabilistic way to present severe weather. Enhanced, help me out. This means more widespread severe storms. Is that? Come on, guys. I'm retired. I have an excuse. But you'll notice that unlike yesterday, there's no area, at least at this point, where the SBC forecasters have indicated a moderate risk, which is a notch up from enhanced. Now that may happen later today as things start to evolve, but reading the convective outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, it's pretty, I don't want to say wishy-washy, pretty much what I'm doing. There's going to be severe weather, and right now pinpointing exactly where it's going to be is a difficult task. I've used messy enough. Later this afternoon, this is the situation at 500 millibars. Let's see if I can read this. Yeah, looks like it's valid at 21Z. That trough that came out of the Great Basin is starting to swing towards the Great Lakes region, and it's got a wind maximum at 500 millibars in excess of 80 knots. And typically severe storm forecasters look at the wind shear between the surface and 6 kilometers to give them an indication on whether or not systems will be organized, whether or not they'll be discrete or form in lines and bands. But the point here being that 80 knots at 500 millibars, which is about 5.5 kilometers up, close enough, is going to produce adequate vertical wind shear for these storms to organize. Still have with the low pressure system moving up into the western Great Lakes. There's still going to be a low level jet stream. This is at 850 millibars later this afternoon. But what is that? 30 in excess of 40 knots. So again, helping to enhance the low level wind shear, which could aid in tornado genesis if there are discrete supercells, and certainly transporting lots of moisture rapidly northward. The thermodynamics, I just grabbed this off of GARP. This is surface-based CAPE. Think of convective available potential energy as the potential for these thunderstorms that develop to have strong updrafts. I typically don't like using surface-based CAPE because it doesn't allow for mixing, and it doesn't allow if you have thunderstorms that are not rooted in the surface. But nonetheless, the general idea is that the atmosphere will be very unstable as long as air parcels can be lifted to the level of free convection. They will accelerate upward and boom, big thunderstorms. So with all these clouds, with all the rain-cooled air around from the morning showers and thunderstorms, with all the mesoscale convective vortices floating around, with all the outflow boundaries floating around, you get the idea that things are pretty complicated. And so when you try to simplify life, and if I had to make a forecast, of course I'm not on the front lines down at the Storm Prediction Center, I will invoke a method by a former graduate student here at Penn State. His last name was Larco. Art, do you remember, is it Dave Larco? Do you remember Larco? Yeah. Last time I know he was working down in Washington. But he devised sort of a shortcut way to forecast severe weather. And imagine the picture of the cold front stretching out of the low and the warm front somewhere up here in the southern Great Lakes. Larco said if you want to just sort of a first guess where the biggest severe weather might occur, look between the cold front, the warm front, and the first couple of closed isobars around the low. So that puts us somewhere in the vicinity of northern, central Illinois, Indiana, maybe into western Ohio. Could be an area that goes this afternoon, provided that there's enough insulation, solar energy to reach the ground to help lift the air parcels to the level of free convection. Lots of convergence in here, and of course, in the upper levels, some positive vorticity advection, differential positive vorticity advection, to help get things going in this area. Good grief! So you can see from the Weather Prediction Center's forecast, it looks pretty messy. Look at all these green areas for showers and thunderstorms and rain. I'll also indicate that as you go farther south along the cold front, there's also a chance for severe weather. I did get a chance to look at a couple of soundings before I came in, and down into Oklahoma and northeast Texas, the boundary layer was capped. So if the cap is broken, there could be some severe weather down as far as northeast Texas, maybe into central Texas, and that, of course, is consistent with their convective outlook. So the long story short, somewhere in here, I think, is depending on how the clouds break and how things warm up and et cetera, could go. Then along the front, along and ahead of the front, as you go farther south, the low goes up across the central Great Lakes into Canada. Takes a lot of the dynamics, the upper level support with us. The cold front sort of initiates showers and thunderstorms farther east, and Pennsylvania is sort of left in the middle, so I don't see us getting a whole lot. I wouldn't rule out some thunder, but I don't at this point I don't see us getting anything severe. I really don't see us getting a whole lot of rain either. I mean, we'll get some rain, but not really heavy rain. And like I said, the thermal ridge ahead of that front will move in to western Pennsylvania tomorrow. We'll briefly warm up. The front will go through tomorrow afternoon and we cool down a little bit. But it looks like a good weekend.
Sounds good. Anybody have any questions for Lee? Yes.
Yeah, we just went over the SPC outlooks the other day. It's a little bit confusing, all these new marginal enhanced. Enhanced is kind of between slight and moderate where they want to diagnose more coverage expected, but not quite enough confidence with moderate.
I know I'm retired, but I find it more confusing.
Yeah, it's more confusing.
I liked it better the other way.
Same here.
But
Lee, do you think it actually gets warmest after the cold front goes?
it could, yeah. When the front moves through and mix down some warmer air, yeah. Thank you for agreeing with me, Dave.
That's what I was saying yesterday. The temperatures actually came up behind the front a little bit. Dropped off.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
In the beginning, you mentioned that there was a developing El Nino. I've seen a bunch of conflicting forecasts for this El Nino. I've seen the CFSV2 forecast a very strong El Nino, whereas the Jamstack is forecasting a more of a moderate El Nino. How strong do you expect the El Nino to get?
How about I don't know? I thought it was a bit. I mean, I don't know if you were watching the Climate Prediction Center, but all winter long, there was a 50% chance of El Nino, 60% chance of El Nino, and it never came. Never came. And finally, I mean, did they officially announce it, the Climate Prediction Center? They did, didn't they? But didn't it, by the skin of its teeth, become an El Nino? But anyway, I thought I would. The only reason I brought El Nino up was to get at the teleconnection between split flow in the Eastern Pacific and a more enhanced flow in the southern stream, and that, by the way, I think if I looked at the medium range correctly, there could be another possibility of severe weather next week. It's sort of the same kind of deal. Something comes out of the southern Rockies, and we rock and roll. But it was. I'm a bit rusty. It's probably my message probably wasn't clear, but it is a very, very complicated severe weather pattern. I would not say that you just walk in, punch the clock, and say this is exactly where the biggest, the strongest, nastiest storms are going to occur. It's very complicated. Very complicated.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody else? Well, great. Thanks very much, Lee. Appreciate it. And next week we'll have Dave Dombeck here from AccuWeather, so hope to see you then. Should be warmer next week too. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
I think the guy think of it.
Yeah, definitely. I liked the whole severe weather forecast.